I can still feel the weight of his hands pressing into my waist, the heat of his mouth trailing across my skin, and the rush of forbidden desire drowning out every thought of the man who had vowed to love me forever. In that moment, I was not a wife, not a faithful partner, not the woman I had promised to be. I was burning, consumed by a fire that belonged to someone else. And while my husband was at home loving me with all the faithfulness in the world, I was giving my body to another man. Friends, before I begin to unravel the truth of what happened, let me pause for just a moment. I want to thank every single one of you who has subscribed to this channel. Your support fuels me more than you know. To all the new and returning viewers who are yet to subscribe, I cannot wait for you to hit that button, because it serves as the energy that powers this channel to keep telling these stories. And please, as soon as this hook draws you in, jump into the comments and share your thoughts. I love hearing how these stories move and challenge you. Now, let me take you into my world. My name is Emily. I am 32 years old, born and raised in the suburbs of North Carolina, and married to Mark, the man who, by every measure, should have been enough. Mark is 36, tall, strong, dependable, the type of man who wears his devotion as naturally as his own skin. He is steady, loyal, and utterly in love with me. For 10 years, he has been my anchor, my safe place, the man who has never once wavered in his faithfulness. But anchors, as strong as they are, do not stop a ship from longing for the thrill of waves. The other man's name was Jason. He was 34, broad-shouldered with dark eyes that seemed to see right through me. He worked at the same corporate office where I managed accounts, and he had a boldness about him that could silence a room without him ever raising his voice. Jason was danger wrapped in charm, temptation dressed in confidence. And from the very first time his gaze lingered on me longer than it should have, I felt something stir that I had no business entertaining. It started small, like these things often do. A smile that lasted too long in the break room. A brush of his hand when he passed me papers. A subtle compliment that he knew was not professional. I told myself I could control it. I told myself it was harmless. But every day I walked into that office, my body betrayed me. My heart sped up when he leaned near. My cheeks warmed when his voice dipped low, speaking just to me, even in a crowded space. Mark, meanwhile, was at home planning our anniversary dinner. He was faithfully building us a future, working long hours to make sure we were comfortable. At night he would pull me close, whispering that he loved me, and I would close my eyes, hiding the truth that my thoughts were already wandering to someone else. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday evening. Most of the office had cleared out early because of the storm, but Jason and I had stayed behind to finish a project. The rain beat against the windows, thunder rolling across the sky like a warning. The fluorescent lights above us flickered, casting shadows across his face, and when I looked up from my computer screen, he was staring at me. Not casually. Not politely. But in a way that made my breath catch in my throat. I should have walked away. I should have reminded myself of Mark, the man who had never once failed me. But instead, I stayed. I let Jason walk closer, his steps slow and deliberate. I let him tilt my chin upward, his thumb brushing the corner of my lip. And when he kissed me, I did not resist. I leaned in, tasting the danger, surrendering to the fire that had been waiting to consume me. That kiss was not just a kiss. It was a line crossed, a vow shattered, a door opened that would never again close. In the days that followed, I lived a double life. At home, I wore the mask of a faithful wife, cooking dinner beside Mark, listening to him talk about his dreams, pretending that my heart was fully his. But at work, I became someone else entirely. Someone reckless. Someone hungry. Someone who burned for Jason in ways I could not admit even to myself. I told myself it was just physical, just a spark, just a release from the monotony of married life. But deep down, I knew better. I was feeding a fire that would not stay contained. Every time Mark kissed me goodnight, I tasted guilt. Every time Jason touched me, I felt the weight of betrayal. I was caught between the steady devotion of a man who loved me faithfully and the intoxicating pull of another man who knew exactly how to ignite my desires. That was the beginning. That was how I, Emily, a woman with everything she could ever want, chose to risk it all. And yet, as I stand here telling you this story, I know that was only the beginning. Because the fire that started in that office did not stop there. It grew, it spread, and it threatened to burn down everything I once thought unshakable. When I look back, I often ask myself when the passion turned into chains. At first, it felt like freedom, like I was breaking free from the monotony of predictability. But the truth was, I had placed myself in a prison of my own design. The morning after that first kiss with Jason, I walked into the kitchen to find Mark standing there in his worn t-shirt, pouring me a cup of coffee exactly the way I liked it, 2 sugars, just a touch of cream. He looked at me with a soft smile, his eyes filled with the same kind of love he had given me every single day of our marriage. And I felt like I could not breathe. He slid the cup across the counter, kissed my forehead, and told me I was beautiful, even though my hair was a mess and I had barely slept. His devotion was so steady, so pure, and it clashed violently with the storm of guilt swirling inside me. But then, hours later, Jason brushed his hand against mine in the hallway at work, and that same storm turned into a rush of heat that I could not resist. This was the double fire I found myself in. One flame steady and warm, the other wild and consuming. Both lit at the same time, and both threatening to burn me alive. Jason was relentless. He knew exactly what he was doing to me, how he had carved his way into my thoughts. His texts came late at night, just as Mark's arm draped around me. I cannot stop thinking about you. I want to see you again. I need you. At first, I ignored them. Then, slowly, I began sneaking into the bathroom under the excuse of brushing my teeth, just so I could text him back without Mark noticing. The thrill of secrecy was intoxicating. The risk made every word sharper, every exchange heavier. The first time Jason and I crossed the line fully, it was in the backseat of his car on a Friday evening, parked in the shadows of a quiet lot. My heart raced so violently I thought it might explode. His hands were urgent, his voice rough with desire, and I gave myself to him as if Mark did not exist. I had promised my husband forever, but in that moment forever felt like a distant memory. All I cared about was the way Jason made me feel alive in ways I had not felt in years. But once the fire calmed, the guilt returned, pressing down on me like a weight I could not carry. I drove home with Jason's scent still on my skin, and Mark was there waiting, smiling, asking how my day had been. He wrapped his arms around me, told me he had made dinner, and I almost collapsed under the crushing contrast of it all. Mark was building a life for us. Jason was tearing mine apart, and I was letting him. The lies grew with each passing week. Late nights at the office. Sudden errands. Fake excuses to slip away and meet Jason. Every lie was like a stone piled onto my chest, but every time Jason touched me, I convinced myself it was worth it. There was one evening that still haunts me. Mark had surprised me with tickets to a small concert by a band we both loved. He planned the night with such thoughtfulness, even booking a quiet dinner beforehand. We sat there, candlelight flickering between us, his hand reaching across the table to hold mine. And I smiled at him, pretending to be present, pretending to be touched by his devotion, while under the table my phone buzzed with Jason's name lighting up the screen. He was sending me words I had no business reading, igniting feelings I should not have allowed, and all the while my husband sat across from me, completely unaware. I thought I could balance it, thought I could keep both fires burning without consequence. But desire is greedy. It demands more, it consumes more, it never settles for less. Jason began pressing harder, asking for more of me, wanting me not just in stolen moments but in entire nights. He whispered promises that he knew would pull me closer. You are wasted in that marriage. He does not see the real you. You are mine. And though I hated myself for it, a part of me wanted to believe him. The worst part of it all was how easily Mark trusted me. He had no suspicion, no doubt, no reason to question my loyalty. When I came home late, he would greet me with a kiss and ask if I had eaten. When I slipped into bed beside him, he would curl his body around mine and fall asleep peacefully, believing that I was his completely. But I was not. I was slipping further and further away, lost in the arms of another man, feeding a fire that I knew would destroy me if I let it grow unchecked. And yet, I kept feeding it anyway. Because even though Mark loved me faithfully, my body burned for Jason with a hunger I could not silence. And that hunger was about to push me into choices that would shatter everything. The thing about fire is that it does not stay contained forever. It spreads. It leaves ashes. It destroys what once felt safe. I had been playing with two flames, and deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before one of them consumed me. That night came faster than I expected. It was a Saturday evening. Mark had planned for us to host a small dinner with friends. I was running late, again, because I had been with Jason. I had promised myself it would only be a short meeting, just enough to quiet the restless ache inside me. But time slipped away, as it always did when I was in his arms. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the house lights were already on, and cars were lined up along the curb. I rushed inside, my hair disheveled, my blouse buttoned in a hurry. Mark looked up from the kitchen where he was setting the table. His smile was warm, but his eyes flickered with something else. It was the first time I noticed suspicion in him. "Traffic?" he asked, his voice calm but edged with quiet tension. I nodded quickly, avoiding his gaze, praying he would not look too closely. But his eyes lingered on me longer than usual, and I knew. The steady trust that had always been there was beginning to crack. That night, I could barely focus on conversation. Every laugh, every toast, every casual remark from our friends felt like noise against the pounding of my guilty conscience. I caught Mark watching me more than once, his brow furrowed, his smile strained. The storm was coming. And it came 2 weeks later. I had been careless, too blinded by my own desire. Jason and I had met at a hotel, foolishly, recklessly, and in my rush, I left behind a scarf that Mark had bought me on our anniversary. Jason, careless in his own arrogance, tossed it into his car. Somehow, some way, Mark found it. I came home one evening to find him sitting at the kitchen table, the scarf folded neatly in front of him. "Where was this?" he asked quietly. My mouth went dry. My heart stopped. I must have, I stammered, but there was no excuse that could cover the truth. His voice broke as he said, "Do not lie to me. Please. Not now." And in that moment, I saw everything shatter in his eyes. I confessed. Not because I wanted to, but because I could not stand the weight anymore. The words tumbled out like poison, each one cutting deeper than the last. I told him about Jason. About the late nights. About the fire I had chased while he was home loving me faithfully. Mark did not yell. He did not curse. He just sat there, silent, tears running down his face. And that silence was worse than any scream could have been. He asked me one question that I will never forget. Was I not enough? I had no answer. Because the truth was, he had been more than enough. I had been the one who was not. The weeks that followed were brutal. The house became a battlefield of quiet avoidance, cold dinners, and sleepless nights. Mark moved into the guest room. I would hear him crying sometimes when he thought I was asleep, and those sounds carved into me like knives. Jason called, texted, begged me to choose him. But suddenly, his words felt empty. The fire that once felt intoxicating now seemed cheap, reckless, destructive. I realized that what I had mistaken for passion had been nothing but a selfish hunger. Mark was the man who had held my hand through sickness, who had built a life with me, who had trusted me without question. And I had betrayed him in the cruelest way. One evening, I found him in the living room, sitting in the dark. I sat across from him, trembling, ready to face whatever decision he had made. He looked at me with red, weary eyes and said, "I hate what you did. I hate how you made me feel. But I love you more than I hate your betrayal." Tears poured down my face. I did not deserve that kind of love. But that was who Mark was. Forgiveness did not come quickly. It did not come easily. It took months of tears, counseling, rebuilding, and hard conversations that left us both raw. There were days when I thought he would walk away, days when I thought we would never recover. But slowly, piece by piece, we did. Mark chose to forgive me, not because I deserved it, but because his love was bigger than my failure. And in that forgiveness, I learned the hardest truth of all: passion can fade, desire can deceive, but true love, the kind that endures betrayal and still stands, can only be built on faithfulness. Jason faded into nothing more than a painful memory. Mark remained, scarred but strong, and through his grace, I learned to love him in ways I should have from the beginning. I had burned for another man, but it was Mark's steady flame that saved me.